Hey guys, Spence here, and... So, Heart&Slash. This game was a Kickstarter project back in 2014 in February, and was released on Steam Greenlight in October that same year. It was developed by Aheartfulofgames, that's definitely a name, and published by Badland Games. So in this third-person hack-and-slash dungeon-crawling roguelike, what exactly is going on in Heart&Slash? If you choose the tutorial, you get the full gist of it, but basically, in a robotics and AI lab, the quality assurance system of the facility goes rogue, and once Skynet fueled a robot rebellion later, humanity has been basically wiped out. 100 years later, we see the main character robot named Heart be built right in front of us, and with that, the game begins, and you have a lot more questions than answers. Why were you built? Why are all the other robots in the facility trying to destroy you? Why are you getting these weird messages from someone that looks like one of the doctors? And what's up with this black robot named Slash? And that's kind of about it when it comes to things you can really talk about plot-wise without diving into spoilers, because the plot itself is neat, but it's incredibly thin. And the game also has multiple endings, namely 2, and it all hinges on whether you decide to follow the plot with quotation marks or just run through the dungeons and try to beat the game. In short, the plot is neat, but like I said, it's so thin, it's not really the thing you're going to be coming to this game for. As the third-person hack-and-slash beat-em-up dungeon-crawling roguelike, Heart has the usual kit of maneuvers. A jump, double jump, ground evade, and light and heart attacks that can be chained together on the ground or in the air. Now when running through the dungeons, you're running into 2 different item types. Weapons, which Heart can equip 3 of and swap between them on the fly, even in the middle of combos, and body parts, which Heart can equip that'll give her special abilities, or him, or it. Anyway, they'll grant him or her special abilities, such as gaining more attack and defense when they're surrounded by enemies, extra resistances to elemental damage, or sometimes granting invisibility. As you can tell, the effective parts like to run the gambit of powers. And lastly, there's the upgrade and recycle system. Heart can upgrade any weapon or body part that he finds, along with his or her main body. By spending scrap that defeated enemies drop, he or she can use it to gain set benefits for that given weapon or part. But these parts, outside of the main body, can be recycled, which by doing so, if Heart is hurt, will restore HP, and if Heart has full HP, it will increase Heart's max HP. And the more upgraded the part is, the more HP you'll get back when you recycle it. Though let me be clear, it will not increase the amount of max HP you get if you do this when your HP is full. So keep that in mind. The natural game flow is you start the game, pick up your starter weapons and parts, fight any robots that get in your way while looking for new weapons and parts, upgrade your weapons and parts, and then fight a boss at the end and cycle, rinse, repeat until you reach the credits. To be really blunt, gameplay-wise, it's definitely worth $15 in the sense that the gameplay is fun. Trying out the different weapons and seeing what they can do and their upgrades is always a good time. Add in some satisfying combat with enemies that are modular in design, meaning that you can run into different enemies with different weapons. And with the upgrade and recycle system adding a level of complexity to it, it's definitely a good time for a while, but there are some issues that do need to be addressed. First off, this game is short. It'll probably take you a few hours to beat the game on your first run through, and that's including all the times you died. Meanwhile, the actual individual runs themselves that are successful will probably take you about an hour, maybe an hour and a half at most, depending on how quickly you can find the boss rooms or how much you decide to wander around any given level. The game relies on its replayability, such as getting the other ending that I mentioned earlier, and playing as other characters that you can unlock by meeting certain requirements, such as the black titular Slash, who is harder than Heart to play. Secondly, the bosses in this game, and this may not be a big deal for everyone, but it is for me. After you fight them your first go around or figure out their patterns, these guys become straight up jokes and you can beat them more or less every time. Even the last boss is only okay, none of them really stack up well in the difficulty department. And the last big thing about it is that the game has a weird thing when it comes to explaining itself. It very much so wants the player to figure out a lot of the systems on their own, so it pushes the player in the right direction by explaining like how the upgrade and recycling systems work, but it won't tell you the finer details of them, like the secondary effects of upgrading Heart's main body. Then there are the individual perks on weapons and how these aren't written out to be exactly clear for the most part. Sometimes they're obvious, like they'll say some key words like sharper or nimble, and that would imply that it's going to do more damage or attack faster. But there are other ones that when you look at what it says and you look at the cost of the scrap, and you just realize the game devs are just messing with you. Presentation-wise, this is another game that focuses on performance and style as opposed to pure graphical power. When it comes to the options menu, there really isn't a whole lot there, but the game really isn't that graphically intensive in the first place. It has more than enough resolutions, and chances are you'll be able to run it just fine. The best way I can use to describe its visual look is take The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker's visual style and make everything look a lot more voxely, tone down the shadows, and give all the colors a saturation boost. The sound effects in the game also work really well, making all the attacks feel very impactful and helping combat feel even more satisfying, all the while to an upbeat techno soundtrack by Michael Chet. Frankly, the soundtrack is very hit or miss for me. While I did buy it, there are really just a few tracks that I really like the theme for the first stage and the city level, but for the most part, it and the rest of the presentation succeeds. And that's Heart&Slash. Would I recommend this game? Definitely. A $15 three-dimensional action game from an independent studio that's actually really good is pretty rare nowadays, with the last one I can even think of being Assault Android Cactus, and even that was more isometric. The combat is satisfying, the weapons are fun, and while you will be going through the same dungeons and fighting the same enemies over and over again, a lot like in Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, you will be doing it under different stipulations, and you're always unlocking new things as you go through the dungeon, and the extra characters definitely add to the replay value. And in conclusion, a lot like the titular character, it is very small, but it has a lot of heart, and that's more than we could say for a lot of other games that we've seen before. If you wanted a 3D action roguelike, this is definitely something to pick up. Hello again, thanks for watching. If you happen to like this sort of content, drop a like, comment, subscribe, and maybe tell a friend who will also be interested in this sort of content. In the meantime, you can click on the left annotation and see the last video I did on Earth Defense Force 4.1, The Shadow and New Despair, if you're interested in shooting giant bugs and giant robots, of course. On the other hand, if you want another former Dreamlike game that involves robots going awry, then I recommend looking at Assault Android Cactus. You can click on the right annotation and see my opinion on it there.